Hello, this is Mariette from Your Heart and Union, and I'm going to cook a divine dish meal, chicken curry with braised kale and rice. Before I start, I'd like to tell you a story. When I was a little girl, I used to always love baking, and I would bake a lot with my friend, Esmarie, and we would pretend that we were hosting a baking show. I really like watching baking shows, so it was very exciting when you're bored and it's holiday time and you're baking and you pretend like you're narrating your own baking show. Well, this was before we had smartphones, before there was the internet, so I didn't know that YouTube vlogging was going to be a thing. I didn't know that it would be really easy to record myself doing something like that in the future. And somehow with starting Divine Dish, I have started really getting into taking pictures of my food and feeling very guided to record a video of myself making one of the meals. We're gonna have to see how it goes with the sound because I might have to switch on my vent fan at some point. But hopefully it all goes well. So in true cooking show fashion, I'm going to show you that I've already prepared all the ingredients. But what I do not have is an already prepared meal to just show you. That would be very convenient, but it's not the way that this is gonna go. First, I have some tips. Okay, so what I've noticed is when I'm busy cooking, I really can't fumble around with my phone to try and keep the recipe open. And also because I'm cooking for one, I have to have a converter on my phone in order to actually figure out things like 0.13 cup. So I have a units converter that I've downloaded called Units Plus, which is really helpful and also helped me when I moved from South Africa to the US for the first time. So I'm using that a lot nowadays. The other thing that I've done, and I'm going to show you now, there's a cameo. This is Maya. Okay, the other thing that I've done is I have the recipes open side by side. So you'll see I have the chicken curry and the braised kale open, and it might be reversed for you, but that doesn't matter. All right, so firstly, for the chicken curry, it says on the instructions that the recipe should take you about 25 minutes to actually cook the food, but you need about 10 minutes for prep. And the braised kale needs about 15 minutes for prep apparently, and 25 minutes for cooking time. So I'll tell you, it took me a little bit longer because I wanted to get everything prepared and like neatly stacked out in preparation for this video, which is not the norm, right? So what I've also done is I have a rice cooker because I always screw up the rice. I know it's supposed to be basic, but so you'll see I have a handy little rice cooker on the side there, and my rice is actually already cooked. So what else we have is we have the 2 pans ready. In the recipe it says to make the curry in a pot, but I have a really nice pan and I prefer to use something non-stick. And I know the volume will fit, so yeah, we have 2 pans. The one pan is for the kale, and so I have the kale already portioned out. For the single serving, you're supposed to have 0.36 of a cup. But this is a little bit more. This is a cup measure, so it's a little bit more, but that's okay. That's about 1 leaf, so 1 kale leaf stripped off of the stem. And then I already have the chicken stock and the onion powder and the garlic powder in this container here. Butter's ready to go, so I can switch on the stove now and start melting that up. The other thing that I have ready is, if you see over here, I have, so if we check here on the side, I have the onion and the garlic ready. I have the chicken portioned up, the red curry paste and the curry powder, and I have the coconut milk and the chicken stock, and over here the lime juice and the sugar and my little bits of coriander for my garnish at the top. And if you couldn't see all of that, I'm sorry, this is my first time making my own cooking show. I'm also turning on the stove for the larger burner where I'm going to do the chicken curry. We'll see how this goes, because it's my first time doing it all live and I normally do get confused. So, looking at our handy recipe, which I'm going to move a little closer to myself. The first thing we need to do is we need to heat the oil over medium low heat. And then we're supposed to add in the onions and the garlic and cook it for a few minutes until the onions are fragrant and softened. So while that's going on, the butter is softening over here for the kale. And it's okay if the kale finishes a little bit earlier, because you can always just keep it lukewarm on the stove or in an oven if you want, if you're cooking for more people, whatever your preference. Yeah, you can do that. So my kale's probably going to be ready before the chicken curry, but that's okay. I'm just going to turn it a little bit lower down. And I've just used olive oil instead of vegetable oil. I don't think it really matters. It's not such a big flavor difference. It's just, I just prefer cooking with olive oil. So that's a little bit healthier. Alrighty. So, just moving this a little bit lower so you can see what's going on. Waiting for my stove to heat up. Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about Divine Dish. So Divine Dish is a new food program that's been started by the founders of twinflamesuniverse.com and by a couple of their students. So Chef Jason is one of their live students, and he's Twin Flame Chrissy. I know there are more students working behind the scenes on the program, but Divine Dish is Jason's life purpose work. And Jeff and Shalia have helped him to get that into the form that it is now, which is divinedish.org. We're currently busy with a beta. So, in the beta, it's slightly reduced price per month. But we're obviously still testing recipes and still trying to see what's working. And things might be a little bit different once the program goes live. So the butter heated up, so I started with the kale. And it says to cook it in the butter for about 1 to 2 minutes before you add the chicken broth, garlic and onion. And then put a lid on that and allow it to actually just braise for about 10 minutes. So I'm just doing that. Multitasking isn't always that easy, but the pan for this is starting to go. So I'm just going to finish this up and then I will move on to my onions. And so it says onions and the garlic. And little secret, my onions were actually chopped up and frozen. So I could just take out however much I needed from the frozen onion. Cooking for one, you start doing little things like that. Alrighty. I'm gonna add this braising mixture, kale, and get a lid somewhere, and actually allow this to saute a little bit. So it says to saute it for about 10 minutes, stirring every few minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to switch on a timer for that. Alrighty, now we can focus on the curry. So for the curry, doing the onions and the garlic until it's fragrant. Well, I can already smell that it's fragrant, but I really like my onions to be nice and translucent. So I might do it for a little bit more. Just bearing in mind that if you cook it too long, the garlic's going to get a little bitter. So maybe just a few more seconds. Okay, so next up we have the chicken. chopped into bite-sized pieces. And I sincerely hope you can actually still hear me. I haven't even switched on the vent fan, but it's getting pretty loud because we're cooking. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm having a lot of fun. This is pretty exciting. So right now we're browning the chicken, and it's actually sometimes it's easier to use some tongs. So it's easier to turn the chicken around and make sure that the chicken is browned on all sides. And like with all things that we learn in the Twin Flames community about healing, we really have to focus on being present with ourselves when we're healing. And so even with the cooking now, my presence is being tested because I'm talking while cooking. I'm multitasking, so we'll see how well this goes, but so far, no disasters. So we're cooking the chicken for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we're going to add the curry powder and the paste, which I have over here. And these little bowls I just got on Amazon, and you can actually get them at some other cute little stores, depending on where you are in the world. But they're just like little pinch bowls, and they're very helpful for spices in small amounts. I sincerely recommend having something like that where you can measure things out and place there in the beginning. It just makes the cooking so much easier and more fun. All right. So this is browning up nicely. The pan is maybe a little bit warm, so turning it down. Okay, I'm gonna add the paste and the curry powder. I'm gonna switch back to my spatula. Or should I say spoon? Wow, and this immediately smells amazing. Very, very fragrant. So just mixing it through. Trying to distribute the red curry paste a bit more evenly because it's sort of clinging to the chicken in weird ways. Okay. And then we're going to cook that for another 3 to 5 minutes. So I'm just going to make sure my pan is not too hot. Okay. Right, so this is going pretty well so far, I'd say. My kale can be a little warmer. So when you are simmering, you basically just want to make sure that you still see a little bit of bubbling, but not too much. So you don't want it to be boiling, but you still want to see movement in the water. So if it starts in the liquid, so if it starts like slowing down, you know that it's too low. And right now, I'm just really grateful that I already made my rice, which is going to save me so much drama later. Maya is currently around my legs and looking for little bits that I've left behind. Sadly, I've been very neat this time, so she's not needing to actually clean up for me. And right now, I'm really grateful that I have the non-stick pan because it's sticking a little bit, and it would have been worse if I used the pot. But when I'm stirring, the chicken, which is very fragrant, I'm seeing a little bit of darkening from the paste, so I'm just gonna actually turn it down a little bit more. And it says here you're gonna add the coconut milk and the chicken stock and simmer it for about 15 minutes until the chicken is fully cooked. So I just want to show you a little bit more. Maybe I can zoom in. Nope, no zoom. But essentially, chicken's looking pretty good. Gonna add the coconut milk and the stock. Wow, it smells really, really divine. So just gonna make sure I coat everything nicely. And it does have a little bit more surface area now than it would have had in a pot, but I think it'll still work out just fine. So I'm just going to scrape off my spoon a little bit, and then it says simmer for about 15 minutes. I'm just going to keep it a little bit lower because right now it's actually boiling a little bit too much for my liking. Okay, that's looking good. So it says 50 minutes or until the chicken is fully cooked. And this, I don't have a lot of chicken. It's already looking pretty good. So I actually need to set, I think, a timer for about maybe another 10 minutes just for it to soften. So the kale's definitely going to be done before then. We have about 3 minutes left on the kale. So probably need about another 7 minutes on top of that when that alarm goes off. So I'm just going to remind myself, because no one else can remind me, that I need to add 7 minutes after that's done. And because my pan isn't sealing very well, my lid isn't sealing very well on this pan with the kale, there's a little bit of noise because I have some water dripping on the surface of the stove. Right, so now while you're waiting a little bit for your chicken to simmer and everything else to cook, this is a really good time to actually just take out your cutlery and your plates and get everything ready for when you want to eat. And probably also a good time for a glass of wine. All right, welcome back. In true food show fashion, time has sped up and we have actually progressed quite a bit. You'll see that your sauce for the chicken will have started to thicken a little bit. And it's just the fragrance is just deepening as it's cooking. So that still has a few minutes to go. I've added my extra 7 minutes onto the timer. So that's great. And actually was going to use the spoon for my kale. But since only I am the one that's eating and it's all going to be tasting pretty mixed, I'm going to use that. Right, so you're actually supposed to have stirred your kale every now and then. I haven't completely done that, but it's looking really delicious and soft. So in the recipe it says when the kale is tender, you can remove the lid and simmer it to evaporate most of the chicken broth. And you don't want the kale to be bone dry, but you don't want it soupy either. So right now, there is actually quite a little bit of liquid still in there. So I'm going to simmer it for a few minutes and then we'll be ready with that. Right, and now I notice that my burner for this is really too low. So turning the chicken back up a little bit. And if you're fortunate enough to have a dishwasher, it's really, really good idea to try and like load it up while you're cooking in between, because it just makes it easier once you sit down, that you can just sit down and eat and your food is nice and warm and you don't have to worry about actually doing that afterwards. I don't know about you, but I get really lazy once I've eaten and then I don't want to do the dishes. So this is my little way to force myself to actually keep my kitchen clean. It's to actually clean up while I'm cooking. and try to clean up before I eat if it's not going to make my food cool down too much. So that's my little top tip for keeping your kitchen nice and clean. Yeah, and I can see that this was a little bit low for a few minutes there, the temperature of the simmering, but it's starting to bubble a little bit more. If I had a gas stove, it would have been easier just to make sure that it's the right temperature, but my burner is a little finicky. So I've been doing Divine Dish now for about a month, I think. Maybe a little bit less. Since we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic at the moment, I haven't been going to the store as much as I normally would. And the first time I tried to actually commit to doing all of the dishes for Divine Dish, I had quite a bit of anxiety come up. Because the shopping took me a very long time. And that was because I was trying to shop for the entire week's recipes all at once. And I didn't have a lot of the basics, because my cooking style that I used to do was a little different. I wouldn't cook that often. I would cook once or twice a week, and then I would use leftovers, maybe freeze them or eat them just, from the fridge as the week goes on. Or if I had a really bad week with work, I would do a lot of takeout and meals with friends, because the socializing was something that would help me feel a bit better. And food has always been my comfort. So if I'm not feeling good, I never wanted to cook for myself. I always just really wanted to have someone else cook for me or order food that would taste good and make me feel better. So this is where we end comfort eating for numbing out of our emotions. And we actually face it. And so one of the things that I used to really hate was if I had like these meal planning services, that I would feel that I had to cook the food, and in the end the food would go off and I would throw most of it away, and I wouldn't actually have cooked it. So I had a little upset there. So yeah, my first week of Divine Dish, of cooking all the meals, I had so much resistance I had to work through. But because I have all the tools I need, like the mirror exercise taught by Jeff and Shalia, which I will link at the bottom of this video, you can find that afterwards, I could actually work through everything that was coming up and found myself in a place where I was able to recognize that these were triggers and upsets and actually heal them and nourish myself. Now, some days it was a little harder than others. If the healing was really intense, I might, use some leftovers from when I first joined Divine Dish and cooked some bigger portions. But I'm getting into a rhythm now where most days I'm cooking the recipes exactly as they are. And I might substitute a few ingredients here and there if I didn't actually remember to buy it. I see that, I still have some things to heal around chicken. Especially chicken that is coated and almost like deep fried. That is something I've been struggling with. My mother is a dietitian, and I grew up eating very healthy, basic food. So no cream, no coconut milk. Oh, hell no. So even now, as I'm cooking with the coconut milk, I'm thinking about the saturated fats. But it's okay, because I can feel when I'm eating this food that my body really wants it, and I feel so healthy and happy. And the food has a vibration of having been blessed, because this is part of our community's way of supporting ourselves. It really has that extra oomph in it. It's not just a chicken curry, even though the recipe is probably just a chicken curry. That's okay. So it's grounding into this really peaceful, sustainable, supported lifestyle. And having the forum where we can talk to each other about the recipes and share also helps me to actually stay honest with myself and actually keep cooking, especially when, you know, I don't really feel like doing it and I maybe start getting a bit lazy. That's very, very helpful structure and self-discipline, which I did not have with, you know, other things like, let's say, HelloFresh. Right, so this is about ready. It says now on the recipe that I can add in the brown sugar and the lime juice. So I'm going to do that now. Might need a little help with that. Okay, so brown sugar and lime juice. And then we are going to just mix that nicely. And it says we can top it with the fresh cilantro to garnish. Okay, so the kale actually can get a pinch of salt and pepper, which I don't have in there yet. And if you're being a really truly present cook, you would actually be tasting your food as you're cooking. Yes, we're following a recipe, but it is cooking. It's not baking. This is not an exact science. It's about being present and honoring your own taste buds. All right, so I'm just going to start serving. Hopefully my rice is still good. This rice cooker was really cheap, but is probably one of the best things I could have bought. I'm just turning off the stove for the chicken because that's starting to go a little bit more than I wanted to. Yeah, so if you don't have all the kitchen basics, some things I'd recommend, definitely the rice cooker. But also I would recommend some like hot trays, like not hot trays, trivets, like little stones and things you can rest your warm pans on. If you don't have a lot of space in your kitchen, you will find that you will run out of space to put things. So that's what's happened to me now. So I just had to grab one of those trivets and try and move my my pan off the stove. Okay. And so I mean I did make the perfect sizing with the rice, etc. But when you're dishing up, you also have to honor your own body, right? It's supposed to be a balanced, nutritious diet, eating plan, not a diet, sorry. And if you don't honor your own body and you just eat the amounts that are listed because you feel you have to, you are going to find yourself overeating. Now, if you haven't been eating properly and you haven't been cooking for yourself, or if you don't grow up like me, where I had a kind of good idea of how much I should be eating, you might actually have not been eating enough, and so it might be in your best interest to stretch that a little bit. But you can easily calculate how much you need to take in online by looking at your weight and your height and looking at your BMI and calculating your ideal caloric intake. And the recipes do have the all the indications at the bottom, how many calories and which food groups all the food belongs to. Right, okay, so I'm just gonna dish up my beautiful chicken curry. And I've chosen to use a really pretty plate that's almost like a bowl. Alright, now I will show you what this looks like in just a second. chicken curry with braised kale, and in my version, brown rice. I'm definitely going to enjoy this. I'm enjoying it with a glass of red wine. And before we forget, the fresh cilantro, or coriander, as my South African friends would know it, goes on top of your curry, and then it's even better. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this first take of my own cooking show. And I hope you join us and make these divine dish meals, and also form your own healthy habits. So enjoy!